They say you can feel an earthquake coming. The air gets heavy, animals go quiet, but that morning I felt nothing. I was 400 kilometers away, drawing dreams while my world was about to collapse in 34 seconds. On the wall of my Ankara office, the clock read 7:57 a.m., February 6, 2023. My pencil slid across paper, sketching the curves of a building that would never be built. My phone vibrated. Mom's photo lit up the screen. Her smile, that familiar kitchen behind her. I smiled back at the image, my thumb hovering over the green button. Yet, when my eyes caught the time, I froze. The deadline, the client, the pressure wrapping around my chest. I let the call ring out, then fade into silence. So my pencil went back to work. The line I was drawing swept across the page until suddenly the graphite snagged and snapped, leaving a jagged crack across the blueprint like a lightning bolt I hadn't drawn on purpose. I stared at it, oddly unsettled. Somewhere far away, the real crack had already started. Later, when the dust settled over everything I loved, 5 words would echo through every choice I made. She lost everything. Then she built something impossible. Before that, my life had been balanced on a different kind of fault line. I grew up in a house my father built with his own hands, concrete blocks, rebar he could afford. It stood for 30 years. He was proud of it, so was I. For a long time, I believed pride itself could keep walls standing. My name is Ayşe Demir, 29 years old, an architect in Ankara, designing modern buildings for people I'd never meet, while my heart remained in rural Hatay province. There, my father, a craftsman, not an engineer, first taught me about structures using wooden blocks on our living room floor. "Balance, Ayşe," he'd say, his calloused hands steadying my wobbly tower. "Everything needs a strong foundation." Meanwhile, my mother beamed at every report card. "Our daughter, the architect." My younger brother, Deniz, would grin. "Will you build me a mansion, Ayşe, with a football field and a game room?" That house held everything. The kitchen where Mom taught me to roll yufka dough so thin it fluttered. The living room where we squeezed together around a flickering TV. The garden where Father planted a pomegranate tree the day I was born. 1 week before the earthquake, Mom video called from that garden. For the first time, red pomegranates hung heavy on the branches. "Look, Ayşe," she turned the camera. "It took 29 years, like you. Come home soon to taste it." I was reviewing blueprints, my mind in someone else's building. "Soon, Anne, I promise, soon." Then the call ended. Papers called me back. Outside, a cloud slid over the sun, dimming my desk for a moment. Yet even with everything shifting under my family's feet, I felt nothing at all. The timestamp that followed carved itself into every screen and every memory. At 4:17 a.m. in Hatay, while my office in Ankara slept, the earth screamed. I didn't hear it. No one around me did. But 400 kilometers away, the ground buckled like a thrown carpet. While I hit snooze on my alarm, buildings folded like paper. My family's home, 30 years of birthdays, arguments, and laughter, crumbled in seconds. Each collapsing room took a piece of my past with it. By the time I woke and unlocked my phone, my world had already changed. My notifications were a wall of panic. Videos of shaking rooms, voice notes cut off mid-sentence, headlines I didn't want to read. I called home, no answer. I tried again, still nothing. Mother, Deniz, Father. With every ring, my stomach dropped further. So I drove. 12 hours through hell, roads cracked open like broken bones, bridges twisted, entire apartment blocks lay on their sides. Dust clouds hung over towns like dirty fog. Every kilometer I prayed. Every kilometer another part of me whispered the truth I didn't want to hear. When I finally turned onto our street, I recognized the pomegranate tree first. It was still standing. Everything else was gone. My legs buckled as I stumbled from the car and fell into the rubble that had been our home. My hands dug through debris in wild, pointless motions. I found a photo frame, the four of us smiling, its glass shattered into a spiderweb of fractures. My father's builder's level, bent but intact. My mother's recipe book, pages torn and gritty with dust. I had a degree in architecture. I knew seismic codes, reinforcement ratios, ductility, failure modes. I knew how a building should behave when the ground moved, but I had never asked if the house my parents slept in could survive that movement. In a shard of glass, my reflection bent and broke, splitting into versions of myself. The 7-year-old at my father's side, the student memorizing formulas, the architect who never checked her own foundation. Something inside me cracked along the same lines. The next 3 months passed like 3 separate lifetimes. I couldn't make myself return to Ankara, to my neat office and easy coffee, so I stayed in the disaster zone as a volunteer, moving through tent cities where thousands drifted in a fog of waiting. Day after day, the scenes blurred together. White canvas tents like wilted flowers, soup lines, children kicking bottles instead of footballs, elderly men staring at empty lots where their homes once stood. Everywhere I went, people asked the same question in different words. When can we go home? At first, I thought the answer was simple: rebuild. But then I watched how some rushed to rebuild. I saw contractors mixing poor quality concrete with more water than cement. I saw columns with thin, widely spaced rebar. I saw foundations poured over loose, unprepared soil. One afternoon, an old woman stood beside me, watching a group of workers slap up a new 2-story house in days. There were no proper seismic joints. No one checked soil conditions. "Will it be safe this time?" she asked quietly. The contractor shrugged. "Inshallah, God willing." In that shrug, he handed responsibility to fate instead of science. As I watched them repeat exactly what had failed before, I realized grief had given me 2 paths. I could sink into it, lie down beside the ruins of my family's life, and let the dust cover me too, or I could dig through it, searching for something solid enough to build on. Standing in the shadow of that unsafe house, I suddenly saw both routes clearly. One sloped down, toward numbness and surrender. The other climbed upward, steep, uncertain, but lit by something like anger and love woven together. I looked at my father's bent builder's level in my hand. I tilted it until the bubble found its place in the middle. Then I chose the harder path. What I decided to build next would save hundreds. So I moved into a tent on my family's land beneath the stubborn shade of the pomegranate tree and turned grief into research. I printed earthquake engineering studies from Japan, Chile, Colombia, the Philippines. I taped them to canvas walls. I watched videos of shaking tables, collapsing beams, swaying towers. Again and again, one thing caught my eye. In some quakes, bamboo houses flexed and survived where heavy concrete ones snapped. Bamboo bends, concrete breaks. I murmured one night, what if we could make concrete behave more like bamboo? I began sketching hybrids, columns with bamboo cores, walls that could rock but not shatter, foundations that could shift without failing. I built small test frames and shook them by hand. The first one broke. So did the second. The third crumbled dramatically, leaving me coughing in dust. That's when Emmet appeared. He was an elderly carpenter whose workshop had collapsed. He'd known my father for years. Watching me sweep up broken blocks, he stepped closer and ran his hand over the debris. "Your father built my workshop 20 years ago," he said. "It fell too. Let me help you build something that won't." From then on, we worked as a team. We harvested wild bamboo from nearby streams, learning to cut, cure, and treat it so insects wouldn't feast on our future walls. We crushed rubble from earthquake ruins into aggregate, refusing to let broken buildings mean only death. We experimented with mixtures until our bamboo-reinforced concrete blocks could flex under pressure instead of exploding. I brought design and calculations, Emmet brought instinct and experience. "Your father used to say," Emmet reminded me, shaving a bamboo strip smooth, "the earth is always stronger, so don't fight it, learn its rhythm." As we tested new frames on a makeshift shaking platform, I watched them sway and spring back, almost like people practicing drop, cover, hold on drills. Our buildings, I realized, needed their own drills: bend, absorb, recover. Slowly, it stopped feeling like science fiction and started feeling like hope. 6 months after the earthquake, our first full-scale prototype stood where my childhood home once had. On test day, villagers gathered in cautious semicircles. Engineers from the city arrived, skeptical but curious. Officials hovered, calculating costs and risks. Over all of us, the pomegranate tree watched like a witness that refused to fall. A seismic simulator truck backed into place. On its platform stood 2 small houses, a traditional reinforced concrete model in dull gray, and our bamboo concrete hybrid in green. Simulating a 7.5 magnitude event, the operator announced. The platform surged into motion. The gray model rattled. Fine cracks appeared, racing across corners and door frames. Suddenly, with a sharp pop, a column gave out. The roof slammed down. 2 walls collapsed outward in a dusty sigh. Beside it, the green model rocked hard. The bamboo cores absorbed energy, flexing. Plaster flaked. A few hairline cracks appeared. Yet when the shaking stopped, the house remained standing, tilted but whole. For a breathless moment, no one spoke. Then a child pointed. "Look, it's still there." The crowd erupted. Cheers, choked sobs, whispered prayers. An old man wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. A woman reached for her children, pulling them close. In that noise, I felt my father's presence, not in the rubble behind us, but in every person suddenly imagining a different future. The data matched the moment. Our bamboo concrete design was about 40% cheaper than standard code-conforming construction. It used roughly 70% recycled rubble and locally sourced bamboo. It could be built around 30% faster, and its seismic performance exceeded national standards. An elder stepped forward, voice steady. "Can you build one for my family?" he asked. Then another voice followed, and another. That afternoon, the idea truly left my sketchbook and entered the community's hands. The first family signed up, then 5 more, then 20. Like a single drop falling into a still pond, one safe house created ripples across the devastated region. From above, the growing pattern of green-roofed homes spread across the broken landscape like stitches closing a wound. I refused to let this become an exclusive technology, so I started training local workers, women and men together. Former farmers learned to tie seismic joints with the precision they once used on vines. Young people who'd lost their schools became fast, careful carpenters. Widows who had never held tools learned to cut and anchor bamboo. We published open-source blueprints online and pinned printed copies in mosques, schools, and aid centers. Anyone who wanted to build safer could do it. No licenses, no hidden costs. Knowledge, I saw clearly now, saves far more lives when it flows freely than when it is sold. Soon, our building sites turned into gathering places. Elderly craftsmen passed down tricks to teenagers. Women mixed concrete shoulder to shoulder, talking about color choices for their new kitchens. Children harvested bamboo gently and planted new shoots in its place, creating future forests of shelter. We ate together on bare slabs that would become living rooms. We argued over window positions and laughed about whose roof would be painted brightest. 18 months after the earthquake, the numbers told a story no headline could fully capture. More than 200 bamboo concrete homes built. Over 800 locals trained in safe, earthquake-resilient construction. Across all those houses, not one life lost in the aftershocks that followed. The method had spread to 7 provinces. Yet we didn't stop at walls and roofs. Every family who received a home also received training: how to assemble an emergency kit, where to store it, which routes were safest, where to meet after a quake. We ran drills in streets and schoolyards, turning fear into practiced movement. Because even the safest structure cannot protect people who don't know what to do when the earth starts to move. We weren't just rebuilding houses, we were rewiring communities for preparedness. Eventually, we turned our first prototype house into something new, a memorial and training center. Inside, one wall displayed photographs of earthquake victims, stretching from floor to ceiling. My family's picture sat among them, no larger, no brighter. On the opposite wall, photos showed families in their new homes, smiling on green steps, leaning against bamboo columns. Between those 2 walls, under glass, my father's bent builder's level rested. During a workshop one afternoon, a young girl tugged my sleeve. "Miss Aisha," she asked shyly, "can you teach me to build houses too?" I knelt until we were eye to eye and saw my younger self in her, curious, stubborn, hopeful. I placed a small, bright yellow level in her hands. "First lesson," I said, "always check your foundation, in the ground and in what you believe. Build with knowledge, not just with hope." Behind us, the pomegranate tree cast a broad circle of shade over the yard. Its branches were heavy with fruit now, far more than the 3 of us could ever have eaten. I picked one and broke it open. Ruby seeds spilled into my palm like tiny hearts. My mother had said the tree took 29 years to bear fruit, my entire life up to the quake. She never got to taste it, but I did. The sweetness was sharp, mixed with the salt of memories and loss. Every safe home we build is a seed from that tree. Every life saved in the next earthquake is fruit my family will never see, yet somehow helped to grow. It isn't closure. Grief still trembles inside me sometimes like distant aftershocks, yet it is purpose. And sometimes, purpose is enough to keep you standing, even when the earth remembers how to shake.